Coming to you from the world of AV control, programming, and automation with James King. I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. Hey, James, it's good to be with you again.
Great, Steve. Always enjoy connecting with you and talking about this topic and building our community here.
We've always still have a lot of questions to answer, and it's good that we're hearing from people. One of those people is Ajish Raju, I believe. I'm sorry, Ajish, if I pronounce your last name wrong, but I know you and I have met in person before, and I've also connected with you online, and appreciate you following what we're doing. You had asked for some links for a previous episode, and James provided some of that information for some of the Facebook communities. If you need more information, please reach out to us. But it's good to hear from you. And if there's more questions that we can answer, we'd be glad to. And thanks for following us. Today, we're going to talk about a valuable, something that's close to my heart that I've been speaking on for some time, because I think that it requires some clarification, and that's the idea of programming versus configuration. For some time, there was a movement about these no programming required solutions, and for programmers, it's kind of insulting. It almost made it seem like we weren't going to be needed anymore. And it almost made it seem like programming was this bad thing. And really programming, it comes in a lot of shapes and forms, and configuration still is a version of programming, I would argue, but it doesn't require all of the syntax and all of the minutia that's involved in writing the complex code. And I actually have a session that I present on this, and I'll be doing it in InfoComm. I'll share a little bit about that later. But one of the analogies I make is that there's the easy way and there's the hard way, and that's the two things that's the polarization that has been drawn when you talk about programming versus configuration. Programming is the harder, more complex way, and configuration is the easier way. And an analogy could be in building a website. You could write all of the complex HTML code, or you can use a template, or use a pre-developed solution that is is really a point and click and get you a website in about a half hour. But they're very different animals when it comes down to it. James, I know I've been going a little long-winded on this, but when you're looking at approaching these types of solutions, or what's your first impression actually when you started to consider the value of programming versus configuration?
Um, Really, to me, I'm more of a programming person over configuring. I do understand that each has their place, and I will also give props to Steve and say, check out his course. I got to attend his session when he did it for HEPMA conference, and it's very well done. So definitely, if you're going to do InfoComm or even thinking about InfoComm, sign up for his course because you're going to learn a lot there. But me, programming configuration is different. I prefer programming. I feel like you have finer control. Um, or configuration, you get the job done. And I think for higher education, configuration is that, I'm trying to think of the right word, the godsend, because it allowed more in-house integration and in-house teams to handle the in-house coding as well. I know when I got brought over in my university into the AV side, we were already, as a university, moving to a configuration platform with our system. And but I had to learn the custom coding because I had a programming background, and there were some spaces that require the custom programming. And I personally did not like the configuration modules. We could get a room banged out. I mean, someone like me, I could bang out a configuration room in our system that we use probably in 10-15 minutes. Done, push it to the room, we're good. And that kind of applies back to our last episode of the source code management, because then you can manage the revisions easier. The configurator allowed that really easily to have it there, but there was limitations. Some of this stuff didn't work the way the custom code did. And I'll admit now we are fully custom code now, because we had to switch one of our control interfaces products, because the one we used to use was no longer being sold. And a new interface that we went with is not supported by the configurator. So it's all custom code now, which again, I prefer, but that's the problem is it's all on me now. Where when we were on the configurator, there were multiple people on our team who could easily go to the web interface, click the devices that they had, push out the code, send it to the room.
I think that's a really good point. And I, in some of the conversations that I have when it comes to this, it's you have to understand the pros and cons, because what you said is really powerful. Being able to get a room working in 15 minutes, it's hard to argue that, because just the amount of keystrokes that you have to write code from scratch would take more than that, unless most of it was copying from another project. And I think the idea that it's a great way to bring in some junior programmers, or bring in some student workers, or have it so that I think one of the reasons configuration actually came about was to make developing a control solution more understandable for clients, so that they can make their own changes, and they can swap out a piece of equipment or make an adjustment. However, on the flip side, I believe what you said too is there's a lot of restrictions, and if you're not aware of those restrictions, it could really burn you, and you end up having to have a trade-off, because you have to realize, can I sell to my user that there's limitations here, and because we chose this approach, versus if you're in custom programming, you can almost do anything you wanted. And I like to talk about the fact that we all think in the programming mindset, because that existed first. And you always say, well, you could fix that in programming, and that's not the case anymore with configuration.
No, like I know one of our biggest, I would say, complaint, and the way you look at it is, it's to some people it's a minor issue, and they're like, why is anyone even have an issue with this? And other people are like, this is a big thing, is like proper feedback. So if we were selecting a source, um the light on the panel may not indicate correctly. Like with my custom code, when I turn on the display and turn it off, it's polling that device. So it knows if it's on, it knows if it's off, and this button status indicates that. With the configurator we had, the button indicator followed the last button that was pushed. So if you turn the display on and then change the source is now lit. So you don't know, by looking at the control interface, you don't know if the display is on or not. Now, argument is you can look at the display and see it's on or off. But it's those fine details that I think what makes the experience in AV top notch and improves our user experience. And that's where really our us programmers can shine, is taking those fine details and improving them.
I would also argue that doing world of configuration, it can go very smoothly, but when it doesn't work, that's when it's really frustrating. And I think that I've almost found that some of the younger generation expect that everything is going to be more plug and play, and and they've almost lost the art of troubleshooting, and that's what happens in a situation like this, because you they've eliminated all your ways to be able to figure out why something isn't working, because it's just supposed to work. And maybe it works 95 or 99% of the time, but that times that it doesn't, you're really dead in the water.
Oh yeah. I mean, not to go off too far topic, but here, but that I agree with you that troubleshooting and figuring out something is a lost art. I had a prime example. It's related to programming, but not AV. Back when I was a student worker, I developed this program we call Lockdown for Firefox. So we deployed different browser, Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer to our computer labs. Well, Firefox, you can go into the backend configurator and change settings. So we found a way to lock that down. So I actually script the whole lockdown process. So it wasn't us always figuring out how to do it. So I created a whole program that downloaded the correct background file, locked it, set a password, all that stuff. Um, I did that when I was a student worker. Couple years after being hired full time, where the university is still using this lockdown, I had a student worker come up to me and he's like, James, buddy of mine found out if we did X, Y, and Z, we got around the lockdown. I'm like, okay, go find a solution. He's like, wait, what? I'm like, you found a problem, go find a solution. I go, I developed that when I was a student worker. I go, I'm surprised it lasted this long. I go find a solution for it. And he felt, to me, he felt like he was a kid in a candy store, that he was given this opportunity to go troubleshoot an issue.
Isn't that amazing? It's I I think to me, and we could do an episode on this, is troubleshooting is a programmer's biggest asset. I mean, I think we probably have touched on it before, but we could talk about that for a long time. It's that is something that is just critical to our survival.
Oh yeah, yeah, I agree. Without going too much detail, because I think we got a good topic here. 100% troubleshooting is key.
Well, in wrapping this one up, I do want to share that there is a time and a place for both solutions, and I think that we can talk a lot more about it, and I invite our audience to share their experiences with it, and that's actually one of the things I do in my class. I kind of go into detail about the different criteria that you have to consider, and really the approaches you should take, and some of the reasons why you would use one versus another. And if you want to learn more, I'll be presenting that at InfoComm on Thursday, the 28th of October, or 28th, it looks like. And it's SW25 is the session number. So or reach out to me if you want more information. But please give us some feedback, and share some stories that you've had. And I think it'll likely help some others that are listening, and we'd be glad to share them on future shows, as well as keep them in our comments. James, how can people reach out to you and get in touch to continue the conversation?
Uh, Before I go into that, I again just want to second, definitely check out Steve's InfoComm. I know this is early. You guys are listening to this in May and go, well, if it comes in October, a lot will change between then and then. It's going to be quick. Time goes quick, and definitely register and check out Steve's class there. But you can find me on Twitter, AV_James King, LinkedIn, James King. And as I always say, check out my monthly article, IT and AV, for the higheredav.com website.
Appreciate that. Thanks for the plug. And I look forward, hopefully, we'll get to meet some of our listeners. So that'll be great. For me, you can reach me at Steve Greenblatt on all social media platforms. And please also leave us a rating, a review. Let us know what you think. We're on several platforms, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're trying to get this out as many ways as are fitting the needs of the audience. So I look forward to hearing from you. And that's it for today on Ask the Programmer.